Okay, messieurs, mesdames, bonjour. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning if you are joining us from France. Good afternoon if you are in the Asia Pacific time zone as myself. My name is Anna Austria-Lumé, and on behalf of my colleagues at Business France and at ADP, I would like to welcome you to today's online event. So our Business Opportunities Seminar, Asian Development Bank's focus on the new energy policy and opportunities in Southeast Asia and the Pacific will begin shortly. We are excited to introduce to you our lineup of distinguished speakers for today and take this opportunity to thank them all for their time and expertise. Ms. Anne Marchal, Mr. Sylvain Billard, Mr. Rustam Abdoukayoumov, Dr. Priyanta Wijayatunga, Mr. Bui Zuitan, Mr. Takeshi Shihara, Mr. Stéphane Bessadi, Mr. Christophe Napez, and Mr. Jérôme Lemoigne. Before we kick off today's much-awaited presentations, may I please remind all our participants to address your questions through the Q&A chat box. My colleagues will either reply to your questions directly, or we shall address them at the end of all our speakers' presentations as to keep the fluidity of our webinar's flow for today. We thank you for your cooperation. Lastly, please do not hesitate to get in touch with us should you wish to continue discussions with our experts after today's event. Let us now begin with today's welcoming remarks. To give an introduction on behalf of the Asian Development Bank, it is my pleasure to introduce today's first speaker, Ms. Anne Marchal, Director's Advisor for the Constituency Office of France, Belgium, Italy, Portugal, Spain, and Switzerland at ADP. Thank you for joining us today, Anne.
Thank you very much, Anna. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, good morning. This is a pleasure to welcome you today to this virtual business opportunity seminar dedicated to ADB's new energy policy. This is a particularly timely discussion in light of the climate announcement made by ADB in 2021. And let me, as a brief introduction, give you some context on this announcement made last year. First, in July, ADB has announced its commitment to align its operation with the goal of the Paris Agreement by 1st of July 2023 for the sovereign operations, and on the same date at 85% for its non-sovereign operation, the non-sovereign operation being fully aligned by the 1st of July 2025. Second, by mid-October 2021, ADB announced elevating its ambition to deliver climate financing to its developing member countries to $100 billion over the period 2019-2030. So the adoption of the new energy policy at the end of October last year now provides ADB with a legal framework to deliver on these climate ambitions. As you know, France has been a key supporter of ADB in reforming its energy policy, but a lot remains to be done for the bank to deliver on these ambitious targets it has set to itself. The climate financing needs of the developing member countries in which ADB intervene are huge, and they are even bigger, I would say, in the post-COVID crisis context. To name a few of ADB's possible actions, there is climate mitigation, transformative adaptation projects, support to just transition, all that needs to be scaled up. ADB also needs to increase climate finance in private sector operations. So as you can see, there is a lot to do. French companies can play a major role in the transformation towards a green, resilient and sustainable economy, particularly in the energy sector, where they have a long track record in developing and operating new technologies dedicated to fight the negative effects of climate change. So I really believe that today's business opportunity seminar will be an occasion for the French companies to gain understanding of ADB's action in the energy sector, but also for ADB to learn about the French expertise, technology innovation, and how that could benefit to ADB's projects. I would like to thank all the French companies that are present today, my ADB colleagues for their time to interact with you, and of course Business France for the organization. And I wish you all a very fruitful discussion. Thank you very much, and over to you, Anna.
Thank you very much, Anne. Now for introductory remarks on behalf of Business France, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Sylvain Billard, Head of the Industries and Clean Tech Department for Business France in the ASEAN-Oceania region. He's also Country Director of Business France in Indonesia. Over to you, Sylvain.
Thank you, Anna. Good morning, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, dear ADB colleagues, dear Anne. It's also a pleasure for me to take part in the opening of this virtual business opportunities seminar on new energy policy of the ADB. Business France is very grateful for the continuous support and the close collaboration which we enjoy for a long time with the ADB. It has been reinforced since 2016 with the appointment of a permanent liaison officer at the bank, Anna Austria-Lemay, to serve as a bridge between our respective organizations and a support for the French private sector. So the COVID pandemic obviously challenged a little bit the way we work together, and it required to shift our business support towards a more virtual platform. And we are fortunate that this already well-established cooperation which we have with ADB paved the way to provide continuous vital ADB-related information to French enterprises through this kind of knowledge-sharing seminars. I believe it is the third edition of such virtual business opportunity seminars which we have between France and ADB, and I'm very much delighted and excited that you could all join us today. ADB is a priority partner for Business France and more widely for French stakeholders in international development. We are glad to see that 2020 saw a sharp increase in the involvement of French enterprises in ADB finance projects. I understand that French enterprises indeed won ADB contracts of a total value of over 85 million USD in 2020. It was an increase of 53% as compared to 2019. And I believe that we are waiting for the figures for 2021, and we are confident that French enterprises will prove to have performed even better last year. We believe that French enterprises yet still have more to contribute to ADB activities, especially in the energy sector, where they are established leaders in renewable energy, in energy efficiency, decarbonization topics, while also being deeply committed to developing innovations and new solutions to combat the effects of the climate change, and has been spoken about. So in addition to its private sector, I must recall also that France stands at the forefront when it comes to the fight against climate change and the agenda towards energy transition. And in this sense, we share a vision and a strong common objective with ADB. On a personal note, I'm convinced that French enterprises should dedicate more time and resources in working with ADB, with us, encourage French enterprises who are interested in doing so in the future to take advantage of counting on our liaison officer in Manila, more widely on Business France and the Team France Export network in the Asian Oceania region to support and to help into this endeavor. I would also convey a message to encourage French enterprises to actively consider associating further with potential local or regional partners. I believe finding such local regional partners may consist in a tool, in a valuable asset in targeting ADB finance projects, which could pave the way for even more fruitful business opportunities. So as we prepare for this webinar, which I'm pretty sure will be of utmost interest, please allow me also to express towards our colleagues from ADB how much we look forward to resuming hopefully our business support in person as we observe that international business travels continue to improve, and to hopefully have the pleasure of accompanying and supporting French delegation once again during potential business opportunities forum in Manila in the near future. That's all for today. I wish you all an insightful and fruitful webinar, and we remain. The floor is yours. Anna, thank you very much.
Merci beaucoup, Sylvain. Lastly, to give us a background on the conduct of business opportunity seminars in virtual format and an overview of the energy sector related to procurement, please welcome Mr. Rustam Abdukayumov, Director, Procurement Division 2, Procurement, Portfolio and Financial Management Department, or PPFD, at ADB. Rustam, over to you. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you, Anna, and good morning to all our colleagues in France, and good day to ADB colleagues wherever you are. My pleasure to welcome you to this virtual business opportunities seminar, and of course I would like to thank our colleagues from Business France for helping us in organizing this event. And I also would like to thank Ms. San Marshall from ADB's Board of Directors and Ms. Sylvain Baer from Business France for your kind support and your opening remarks. You all know this is the third year as ADB conducts business opportunities seminars virtually. Those of you who had the prior experience working with ADB, perhaps you remember that every year we used to conduct the so-called business opportunities fairs in Manila. It was very interesting and big event which provided the opportunity to network with ADB staff and better understand how ADB operates. Last business opportunities fair we had in 2019, and it was attended by more than 1,000 participants. Starting from 2020, basically due to COVID restrictions, we could not host in-person events, and we moved to virtual format as we have today. And that was quite successful. In 2020, we conducted 34 business opportunities seminars. Last year, this figure went to 53. Many countries participated, expressed interest, and we see that the interest from business communities is still growing, despite it is virtual. Right? And of course, the pandemic had its impact on the economy of ADB member countries, but despite of that, ADB's portfolio is continuously growing. And we have new types of projects which are being prepared, and of course, there is a need for consultants and contractors to help implement those projects. Just to give you a couple of figures, ADB's current portfolio of sovereign operations, meaning all the projects which are financed based on the government guarantees, is about 100 billion US dollars. It's a pretty much a stable figure for the last 3-4 years. It means that there is no decline. So the portfolio is quite big. In addition to this 100 billion US dollars of sovereign operations, we have about 14 billion of non-sovereign operations. It means projects which are not guaranteed by governments, but ADB's private sector operations department prepares such projects and based on their risk assessment, they provide loans to private sector. This is the overall picture of ADB portfolio. If we discuss about consulting services, about 200 million US dollars ADB provided last year for consulting services administered by ADB. It means ADB does recruitment and manages all these contracts. So we financed close to 2,700 contracts with individual consultants during the year and about 250 contracts with the firms. So it's quite a big amount of work, and as you can see, there's quite a lot of consulting firms and individual consultants interested to work with ADB. But in addition to that, there are opportunities for consultants under borrower-administered projects. And last year, borrowers collectively, they spent about $700 million for recruitment of consultants. And because ADB portfolio is growing and more complex projects are being prepared, of course, there is a need from the borrowers for good contractors and consulting services for consulting firms. And while we advertise all opportunities on ADB website, large contractors, they may be following on this very closely because in many countries they have their offices based on their strategy where they would like to work, and they're basically they can monitor this information very kind of closely. But consulting firms, because their scope of work and interest goes beyond one country. It's difficult for them to have offices in each and every country, and sometimes they miss the opportunities or they learn about these opportunities too late, so that there is no time to prepare quality proposals. So therefore, I think it's very important to understand how ADB advertises all the opportunities and how much time, lead time will be required for firms in order to properly assess and prepare quality proposals. We will discuss about that later today. But I think the main theme of today's seminar is on the energy sector, on ADB's new energy policy, and of course we will cover procurement aspects. Energy sector is one of the two largest in ADB portfolio. The largest is transport, the second largest is energy, and energy sector is very diverse. There are multiple subsectors where there are different types of expertise required. We cannot say that if a company works in the energy sector, it can deliver all types of services required. Because you can compare, say, power generation with transmission, distribution, renewable energy, small grids, and then lately we have smart metering activities, solar, wind, energy. These all require specific expertise. And of course, companies who have that potential can express interest to basically participate in ADB's projects. And the positive thing is that we all see improvements in terms of travel because last 2 years actually, many projects were put on hold or slowed down because contractors and consultants could not travel. Now there is an improvement, and I hope that in the next few months it will be even more easier to travel, meaning that many tenders which were put on hold will be advertised. The contracts which were basically suspended will continue implementation, and the borrowers will be processing more projects. So I hope today's seminar will be helpful for our participants to understand how ADB works and how to find opportunities on ADB website, and also how to cooperate with ADB on a longer term basis, because we all have strategies, right? So it's not just ad hoc opportunity which is available today and there will be nothing coming in the next few years. We have too many opportunities advertised. It's just a matter of choice for the firms to decide where they would like to pursue those opportunities, in which countries, in what regions. And I finally hope that this seminar will be helpful for some of our participants to win contracts under ADB projects. So I wish you good luck, and we are happy to cooperate with you in the future. So thanks a lot, and we'll hand over back to Anna.
Thank you very much, Rustam. So now, without further ado, we will begin today's main presentations. As mentioned a while ago, ADB just approved a new energy policy last October 2021. And with us today, we have the honor of introducing to you Dr. Priyanta Wijayatunga, who is the Chief of the Energy Sector Group under the Sustainable Development and Climate Change Department at SDCC at ADB. Priyanta has over 30 years of professional experience, including 13 plus years in ADB. He joined the bank in April 2008 and was appointed Director, South Asia Energy Division in March 2017, prior to assuming the current position, his current position in August of 2021. Before joining ADB, he served as the Founder Director General of the Public Utilities Commission of Sri Lanka and a Senior Professor of Electrical Engineering at the University of Vanuatu. Priyanta, thank you very much again for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Anna, for that very generous introduction. Good morning and good afternoon to all of you, wherever you are joining from. It's a pleasure to be in this webinar, and take you through the ADB's 2021 energy policy and related aspects in relation to the energy sector operations. Next slide, please. Yes, overall outline of the presentation is going to be key. First, I will take you through key energy challenges in Asia and the Pacific, and obviously the region where ADB is working in, and then the opportunities and changing energy landscape overall as far as the region is concerned, and overall, of course, global environment naturally. And then ADB's energy portfolio, and I'll take you through the energy policy approved last year, and then a few examples of ADB's clean energy projects where we are concentrating quite a lot on now. And then indicative clean energy projects, the list of projects, of course, I will not elaborate on those projects, but give you a list so that you can get a feel of the kind of expertise, rather, areas which we would like to have your inputs in. Thank you. Next one, please. Overall, key energy challenges in Asia and the Pacific, if you look at one area is energy access. If you look at Asia Pacific region, we have about 350 million people without adequate supply. And then about 150 million people of that will have still have no access to electricity. And as you would probably aware, you are aware, 1.7 billion people without access to clean cooking. And then energy security viewpoint, we have a doubling of electricity demand in the region by 2040. And then at the same time, renewable energy investments could reach about $1.3 trillion annually by 2030. Some of these estimates are, of course, before the pandemic, and these may be even accelerating even further after the pandemic. Then environmental sustainability point of view, overall global CO2 emissions, 50% come from, in Asia and the Pacific, and approximately 25% of CO2 emissions from coal power generation. So that's a phenomenal number in terms of the climate change challenge we have in front of us. And so we say the battle against climate change will be won or lost in Asia and the Pacific. Next one, please. If you look at the energy landscape, the opportunities and changing energy landscape overall, profound changes in Asia and the Pacific. One thing, of course, falling cost of renewable energy versus conventional energy. So the renewable energy cost becoming very close to conventional energy, or even in some cases cheaper than conventional energy. Then other important thing is that emerging new and innovative low carbon energy technologies. So every day you feel you experience innovative technologies coming in the low carbon space. Overall global commitments during the last decade or so, we have seen sustainable development goals coming in and universal energy access by 2030 as one of the commitments we have in front of us. And then Paris Agreement, national determined contributions in the individual countries. From ADB commitments viewpoint, we have already committed $100 billion of cumulative climate finance by 2030 from our own resources. In fact, this has been raised recently from $80 billion before. And then at least 75% of operations support climate action for the period 2019 to 2030. These are some of the ADB commitments we have had in the recent times. Next one, please. So if you look at the energy sector portfolio overall from 2011 to 2021 for the last 10 years, energy sector lending roughly hovers around 20% of the overall lending in ADB lending. And total energy sector lending can be split into two parts, clean energy and the rest transmission and distribution investments. And some of this, of course, clean energy investments have transmission and distribution connected to clean energy already embedded. And if you look at climate mitigation financing, we have renewable energy roughly about 60%, and then energy efficiency 39% of it, and only about 1% fuel switching. Next one, please. Yes, last year, if you look at the distribution of lending, it was only roughly just below $2 billion, which is much lower than we used to have. Usually we have roughly about $4.5 to $5 billion annual lending, but obviously because of the pandemic and so on, we were affected with energy sector lending. And it's overall 1.8 billion, again, of Central and West and Southeast Asia have dominated last year, but typically even South Asia is quite a big region in which we lend. So the distribution is something like this, and also private sector is catching up with the sovereign lending, roughly about 1/3 of overall typically, but of course last year it was lower. Next one, please. So this is pictorial view, view of how the lending has been in the energy sector as against overall ADB lending. Naturally, ADB lending last 2020 and 2021 was very high because pandemic related lending, particularly in the health sector, and otherwise it roughly is around $20 billion, and we have about 20% of that coming from the energy sector. Next one, please. If you look at the energy policy, energy policy is based on 5 principles, and principle number 1, securing energy for a prosperous and an inclusive Asia Pacific. So that's very important. That is the key principle, that our task is to provide energy access to the developing member countries. Of course, it should be inclusive and prosperous. And then, of course, at the same time, in parallel, as you heard in the introductory remarks from various speakers, building sustainable and resilient energy future is very important. Energy is a critical, it's an important sector when it comes to sustainable development, and therefore we have to make sure that energy sector lending is addressing those building sustainable and resilient development path. Then supporting institutions, private sector participation and good governance, because without private sector you can't do anything. And in fact, if you look at the enormity of the task ahead in terms of lending or rather financing requirements in the energy sector, private sector will have to come in if these to be satisfied. And for that, of course, you need to have good governance and good institutions in this country. So that's an area where we need a lot of support, and that's the 3rd principle. The 4th principle, regional cooperation. As all of us know, of course, as most of us may be engineers around, and as all of us know, obviously, if you want to get optimal conditions, you need to cooperate regionally and globally. So regional cooperation plays a very important role, and regional cooperation and integration will deliver a lot of important things in the energy sector. And then integrated cross-sectoral operations maximum to get the maximum developmental impact. Because now energy sector alone cannot do a lot of things. It's all cross-sectoral. Energy, water, urban, transport, all these come together. So we have to look at this cross-sectoral nature of energy sector, and then work accordingly to get the maximum developmental impact. So Energy Policy 2021 is based on these 5 principles. Next one, please. Of which I have picked up few selected principles in this particular seminar. First one is securing energy for a prosperous future, inclusive Asia and the Pacific, where our concentration is on supporting electrification programs, then clean cooking, heating, cooling, and then energy efficiency related interventions and consumption chains. And then, of course, promoting social inclusion, gender equality and partnerships. Then on the sustainable and resilient energy future side, accelerating renewable energy is very important, and role of specific energy sources in pursuing strategic decarbonization, as we discussed. And then resilience and energy efficiency in energy sector infrastructure, and then of course ensuring a just transition. The energy transition will have to be just. It's not just energy transition, but it should be just. And then on supporting institutions, we need to have the environment created for private sector development and low carbon development in this. For that, we need to support institutions' capacity should be developed, and then things like tariff and subsidy reforms will have to come in, and private sector participation, as I said, should be promoted, and then of course greater impact through sector-wide long-term planning, and naturally partnering and shape energy reform policies. Next one, please. Yes, if you take few examples of clean energy projects, if I take one from Sri Lanka, we have this $50 million credit line, basically to support through the banking system, both state banks as well as private banks, for the solar rooftop program for the domestic and small institutions to borrow and put up their solar panels and connect them to the grid for domestic use, for their own use, as well as push back to the grid. Then we have Indonesia working with some of these institutions, national financing entity, to design 150 million green finance facility under the broader Sustainable Development Goal Indonesia one platform. Then in Thailand, of course, my colleague will come in more on Southeast Asia department's interventions. Here, integrate utility scale wind power generation with battery energy storage. Then in Mongolia, $100 million loan for first utility scale energy storage project. Then grant support to Kiribati on a floating solar project, about $8 million. Next one, please. Then accelerate climate action. When it comes to energy transition mechanism introduced and now being piloted, still at very preliminary stage in Southeast Asia. This is basically to accelerate climate action, and countries participating in energy transition mechanism will be able to reach more ambitious emission targets, because we are looking at accelerating decommissioning of coal power plants and bringing in renewable energy investments to replace such decommissioning of coal power capacity. And this will definitely not only bring in accelerated decommissioning of coal power, but also bring in an enabling environment to have accelerated deployment of renewable energy, particularly low-cost renewable energy. And this is a scalable model which can be scaled up in different parts of Asia and the Pacific, and also beyond this region. Next one, please. If you look at the clean energy projects, I am giving you a list of projects here. I don't want to go into details. It covers the whole of Asia Pacific region. It has renewable energy interventions. It has energy efficiency interventions, both on the supply side as well as on the demand side. Then you have, as my colleague said, smart grids, the grid strengthening and bringing in smart technologies to strengthen the grids to absorb more and more renewable energy and deliver demand response type of actions in the system, so that clean energy transition can take place faster. And then things like on large scale hydropower rehabilitation projects, new hydropower projects, and then of course across the board cross sectoral interventions encompassing not just energy sector but also water, urban transport, and also urban emissions and building energy systems and so forth. Next one, please. So these are some of those projects on the list, and some of my colleagues coming later will come in more details on these projects. Next one, please. So that basically concludes my presentation, and I hope you got a glimpse of what we do in the energy sector in ADB. Thank you very much. Back to Anna.
Thank you very much, Priyanta. We now move on to business opportunities and energy in the region of Southeast Asia. Our next speaker is Mr. Bui Zhitan, Principal Energy Economist with the Southeast Asian Department at ADB. He is responsible for developing and implementing programs for sustainable energy development in ADB member countries in Southeast Asia. Mr. Bui also serves in the ADB Clean Energy Forum, which promotes knowledge sharing in energy transition and clean energy development in member countries. Over to you, Mr. Bui. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you. Good morning, France, and good afternoon to Manila. I'm very happy to represent my division in this business webinar. As you know, our division is Energy Division of the Southeast Asia Department. So in the next few minutes, I'm going to introduce our operation in the Southeast Asia country. Next slide, please. We oversee the energy operation in Southeast Asia country, and at present, as we speak, we have some active project in some country, and in other country, we are still in the phase of developing a new opportunity for ADB support. So, for example, in Cambodia, in Timor-Leste, we are now having ADB sovereign lending project. By the way, our division is in charge of sovereign lending only. We do not have a non-sovereign, which is part of the private sector department. So in Cambodia and Timor-Leste, we have project which is in the form of the which I would call traditionally project lending. So it's focused on project. With Indonesia and the Philippines, we have also sovereign lending by ADB in a form of different modality, which ADB called result-based loan and policy-based loan. So the difference I will explain a bit later, particularly with respect to how it being implemented and procurement related difference. With other country, we do not have so much activity. For example, in Myanmar, for its condition, and in Laos, PDR, and also in Vietnam, we are still in the process of building up our pipeline, same as Thailand and Malaysia. What I would like to emphasize here is that on our current and future project will strongly focus on energy transition toward a lower carbon system in order to help country to meet their commitment with the global climate change combat according to the Paris Agreement. More and more, we also develop one ADB approach, which means reaching out to other sister department division in the department in charge of urban transport, agriculture, so we can have cross-sectoral project where energy plays some roles, and we also develop one ADB approach, integrating our work with the private-public partnership office. So now I will introduce in more detail specifically what project we are having. Please go to the next one. So in this table, I'm showing the current active project that we have implement in our division. We have 4 projects in Indonesia, 2 projects in Cambodia, and 1 project in Timor-Leste. In the second column, it showed the loan amount that ADB has approved, and the year of approval of a project is in the last column. So in Indonesia, as you may notice, that there are 3 projects with a similar title, Sustainable Energy Access. In the Eastern Indonesia, phase 1 and phase 2 approved in the different year, 2017 and 2020. And Sustainable Reliable Energy Access Program. Actually, this is in Western Indonesia and Kalimantan, in Java. So, and then the 4th project is about geothermal power generation project. Our division is now working on the 2nd phase of it. So if we will be successful, if the management and the board will approve, we will continue to develop more geothermal in Indonesia, where the country has a very good potential for that. In Cambodia and Timor-Leste, our project in Cambodia include the National Solar Park project. This one is one that I mentioned about public and private partnership. So our division finance the common infrastructure for the solar park, where the private sector finance the solar park itself. We also finance some battery storage here. So, and in Cambodia, the second project, which is under implementation, and I am a project officer for this, is a grid reinforcement project, which was approved in 2020, and now we are in the process of implementing it. Timor-Leste just joined our Southeast Asia department recently from the Pacific, and we have a power distribution modernization project. What I can highlight here is that we follow closely our new energy policy by introducing to our member country the green and renewable energy, which we can see in the case of National Solar Park or geothermal. But as you see from the previous presentation by our Chief Energy Sector Group, energy access is still very, very important for this region. So development of the infrastructure, which include transmission and distribution infrastructure in order to expand the electric power system to provide access to the people, still very dominantly a priority in some of our countries, for example, in Cambodia and Timor-Leste. Actually, why we are implementing these 2 projects, grid reinforcement in Cambodia and power distribution modernization in Timor-Leste, our division already started working on the 2nd phase, follow on these 2. Please go to the next one. So coming back to Indonesia, we have the geothermal. In this geothermal project, the GeoDipa, which is our counterpart in Indonesia, they plan to build 2 geothermal power plants in the 2 locations, which go Dieng and Patuha. So We have two contracts here, relatively large size. Both of them is in the design, supply, installation, commissioning, or in short, we like to say EPC package. So these two EPC package is to build the geothermal power plant. So without the well drilling, so it's take from the heat and then produce electricity. In these two package will be bid out as a EPC package, single package. Our project team informing me that they are working in the bidding document and they plan to issue the invitation for bid at the end of this year. And the project, the contract size is relatively large, 113, 114, and the other one is close to 80 million US dollar. As in my previous slide, I show 3 more projects, but they are result-based loan, another modality, which is ADB adopted recently. And in those result-based projects, the country carry out the procurement by themselves. So ADB does not administer procurement. So in our ADB website, when we look into those 3 projects, then it doesn't have procurement plan, but we have geothermal projects. Next one, please. Cambodia, this is my project. The order of the table, the second line is actually a more mature one. So the bidding document, we have previewed it. This is again the EPC contract package. For the Cambodia, the EDC, the electricity to compose, they design it in the form of 4 separate package. 2 of them are for substation installation, and they separate the indoor and the outdoor. And then there's a transmission package, and the special one is energy battery storage. As you can see here, we always try to introduce a new element, new technology, innovative technology in our project, so that while we are assisting country to develop the system, we do not forget to provide them as much as possible state-of-the-art technology. Like indoor substation is the kind of AIS. Outdoor is the AIS, and the other one is indoor substation. So this is important for Cambodia, and Cambodia need for further expanding the power system is still large. We will try to work on future projects similar to this one. You can see in the table the timing for the respective contract packages. The most advanced is the outdoor substation. It's likely to be open somewhere in Q2 this year, and the value is relatively sizable, 60, 40, and then 18. Battery storage is the battery storage go with the national solar park, and this is only 6.7. And the expertise required, I would like to say, for Cambodia, for Timor-Leste, and even for other countries in the region, there is a need for the developed country to tailor what is available in Europe, in North America, to this region, because the system here, the working condition in Southeast Asia is far from advanced compared to other part of the world. Yeah, next one, please. In the Timor-Leste, this is very small country, but by bringing in this project, we would like to already introduce smart metering system, automation distribution system, and also distribution management information system. I think the engineer in the field knows that each of these is very complex. It can cover a lot of things, and I can say that in this region, even a very good power system like in Thailand, in IGAT, PEA, this automation system are still also to be implemented. So introducing this to Timor-Leste is really our effort and the country to modernize the system. And here we really would like to look for the company, the supplier, the contractor who will be helping the Timor-Leste country or country in that particular condition to reap the benefit of this advanced system. We have not so big size of the contract, but it is also good to have. So it's organized into 5 contract packages, and the project implementation consultant is still open. We are still looking for the good company. So this is the Timor-Leste, and we will continue to develop new project for this. I would like to say that the expertise that our division is looking for, we wish to have, can be classified in 2 ways. One is the consulting services. For consulting services, we have 2 kinds of consulting services. One is the project preparation consulting services, and the other is a project implementation consulting services. Project preparation consulting services normally last shorter, 10 months, 1 year, or less than that, 6 months. But consulting services for project implementation is longer, a few years. And then the other kind of expertise we are looking for is the contractor who can tailor and bring in the technology and make it works in the condition of Southeast Asia. Next one, please. Yes. Now I just mentioned about consulting services. So in our division, we run what we call a Southeast Asia Energy Sector Development, Investment Planning and Capacity Building Facility. So the title is long, but in short, we can call it a facility. So this facility is continuous. So here we have a phase 2, then maybe next phase. So this is the platform for what we will use in order to recruit consulting service to prepare new project for our divisions, for our department. I already mentioned just now, this is a kind of before the project is approved. So we have to, especially what we need to do is to introduce new technology, introduce element of capacity building. But not only that, we need also have a complex of social safeguard, due diligence, and gender and other aspect as well. So this TA we just started this year. It's got approved by the management last year. So in this year, we will be issuing the request for proposal. We are looking at the new modality of contract, which we call framework contract. Framework contract will be the one that the chosen technical firm will be able to cover a multiple contract. If they deliver very high quality result. So in this one, we will work during the year 22 to 24 and maybe after that. And we look at the Cambodia, Timor-Leste, and Indonesia and the Philippines. So we want to have a TND strengthening transition from fossil fuel to renewable energy. I would like to say that in the Philippines now, we are preparing a policy-based loan. Policy-based loan, it get approved, and then we prepare for next phase. And in this, under this technical assistant, our team is going to issue requests for consulting services related to geothermal development, ancillary services development, and also offshore wind. Offshore wind, talking about offshore wind, did bring me to remind me about our work with Thailand. Currently, we are still working with Thailand, and if we successful, then we can include in our project pipeline offshore wind development project, which will be included as the one deliverable under this framework contract in the future time. Now, another point I would like to say is about regional cooperation. It's part of energy policy. Our Southeast Asia division also in charge of the Greater Mekong Sub-region cooperation, where we have also a lot of activity, most of which is in terms of the capacity building and consulting support. In the past, we also received a lot of support from donors, including France, to build capacity for this region on the sustainable energy development. In the future, under GMS cooperation, we also look at the energy transition. So I finished my brief information. I think that's the last one. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Buich. And now to discuss ongoing and upcoming projects in the Pacific, please welcome Senior Energy Specialist for the ADB Pacific region, Mr. Takeshi Shihara. Mr. Shihara joined the ADB in 2008 and has since been involved in processing as well as administration of energy sector projects for countries like Bhutan, India, and Nepal, while working for the South Asia Department. In March 2020, he was transferred to the Pacific Department, after which he has been designated the Project Administration Unit Focal in charge of administration of energy projects for the Pacific, together with processing of new energy sector projects. Takeshi, over to you.
Thank you. Anna, can you see this?
Yes, very clear. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for this opportunity. My name is Takeshi Shihara. I'm a Senior Energy Specialist for the Pacific Energy Division at the Asian Development Bank. Today, I would like to provide you with an overview of our energy sector operations in the Pacific sub-region, together with a list of projects and then technical assistance, or TA, to be processed over the next few years. Should you be interested, you can participate as a contractor, supplier of goods and services, and/or consultant through open and then competitive bidding and consultant selection processes. Before my presentation, I would like to briefly mention two things. First of all, a list of projects and TA, which I'm going to introduce, is a preliminary one. There is a possibility that some of the projects might not even push through for a variety of reasons. For example, lack of preparedness of the projects. The scopes of the projects and then their estimated costs may change owing to change business priorities and focuses within the other governments. Second, for the projects and TA, which I'm going to discuss, I can probably answer some of your general questions in terms of our business processes and the schedules of bidding and consultant selection processes. However, when it comes to technical aspects of those projects, I might need to bring some of your questions back home and then refer them back to respective team leaders or mission leaders of those projects. I have prepared for today's presentation a few slides. My presentation is comprised of the 4 parts: overview, focus areas, Pacific Renewable Energy Investment Facility, or PRIF, which is our unique facility to support our energy sector operations, and a list of projects and technical assistance in pipeline. Now it's an overview. ADB has been engaging in supporting energy sector development in the Pacific sub-region for as many as 14 countries, Pacific Developing Member Countries, or PDMCs, as listed here. They are namely Cook Islands, Fiji, Kiribati, Republic of the Marshall Islands, or RMI, the Federated States of Micronesia, or FSM, Nauru, Niue, Palau, Papua New Guinea, or PNG, Samoa, Solomon Islands, Tonga, Vanuatu, Tuvalu. That's it. Here I have explained the business model or business process we've been undertaking to support those projects. ADB provides, as you might know, loans and grants to the governments of PDMCs. Whenever there are good candidate projects, which we have identified, that governments, state owned enterprises or energy sector utilities are undertaking, we process our technical assistance TA to carry out due diligence of those projects, and then we process and provide a loan or grant to finance such projects. To put it very simply, this is what we do for our energy sector operations in the Pacific. Here I have listed two types of the technical assistance we have been undertaking. Transaction technical assistance or TRTA, which is going to be for developing and processing of new energy sector projects and or programs in the PDMCs. And here is another one, knowledge and support technical assistance or KSTA, which is going to be for supporting capacity development of the governments and the utilities in the PDMCs. There is one thing I would like to bring your kind attention to. For ADB assisted projects and TA, contractors and consultants are selected mostly through open and competitive bidding and consultant selection processes. Here is a map on the other Pacific sub-region, where you can see the extent of our energy sector operations geographically, covering 13 countries on this map, together with names and then the project costs of ongoing and or proposed projects. Let me zoom in here. So as you can see, for example, under the name of the Nauru, there is one project which is active called Solar Power Development Project, which has a total estimated project costing to be $22 million. You can find out the similar information under each country's name here. So now you can appreciate the extent of our involvement in this sub-region. This is another profile of our energy sector operations in the Pacific. Over the past decade or so, for the period between 2007 and then 2020, the Pacific sub-region has been significantly investing in energy sector projects as much as $950 million, almost $1 billion, of which ADB has contributed $410 million. The biggest share goes to power generation, which is 64%, followed by transmission and the distribution, construction and upgrades, that is 26%, and energy storage, 7%. This reflects pretty much what the ADB has been prioritizing in our energy sector operations for the Pacific. Here's the list of focus areas. There are 4 focus areas in our energy sector operations for the Pacific. First, development of renewable energy resources. Second, promotion of energy efficiency. Third, maximization of access to energy for all. Fourth, promotion of energy sector reform and capacity development. So let's look at the details of each focus area together with their project examples. Number 1, development of renewable energy resources. Those projects that fall under this category are the projects related to addition of renewable energy generation sources. Right now, solar and then hydropower development are major types of our investment projects under this category. Listed here are 2 of the such projects. One, Cook Islands Renewable Energy Sector Project, ADB funding and co-financing combined, that would amount to approximately $35 million, which is concerned with installation of solar photovoltaic or PV systems and battery energy storage systems, BESS, to enable load shifting, grid stability, and the connection of more intermittent renewable energy to the grid. Here's another example under the first category. FSM, Federated States of Micronesia, Renewable Energy Development Project, which is ADB funding only, that would amount to $15 million. This is concerned with construction of ground-mounted solar PVs and BESS, battery energy storage systems, to integrate solar PV systems into the main grid. The second one, promotion of energy efficiency. Those projects for this category have been related to predominantly upgrading of transmission and then the distribution network, among other things. Our operations have been right now, as I mentioned, primarily concentrated on projects with energy efficiency on the supply side. Therefore, we would welcome the opportunities to work with experts from France who are experienced with demand-side energy efficiency projects in this sub-region. Listed here are two of their such projects. First one, PNG, Power Sector Development Project. ADB funding and co-financing combined, that would amount to 305 million US, which is concerned with expansion and then upgrading of transmission lines and substations. That is also concerned with strengthening of the capacity of the energy sector utility in terms of grid modeling, planning, procurement, and utility operations, among others. Another example under the second item, promotion of energy efficiency, RMI, Republic of the Marshall Islands, Modular Power Network Strengthening Project, that is ADB funding only, which is the approximate 2 million US as the total ADB's involvement. This project is mainly concerned with installation of an advanced metering infrastructure, or AMI, which will allow the executing agency to manage power more efficiently, decrease network losses, and improve revenue collection. The third one, maximization of access to energy for all. As you can imagine, the projects in this area have been supporting some of the government's efforts in covering the unserved population for electricity access. Although many of the countries in this sub-region have been making significant progress toward 100% electrification, there remains an issue to cover a last mile under their electrification programs. Listed here is one of the such projects. Vanuatu Energy Access Project, ADB funding and co-financing combined, that will be 12 million US. This is concerned with mainly extension of grid infrastructure, including 21 kilometers of transmission lines and 79 kilometers of distribution network, connecting an additional 1,050 households to the grid. The fourth one, promotion of energy sector reform and capacity development. This has been also central to our energy sector operations in the Pacific. We've been supporting the other governments on various fronts in this area, such as drafting an Electricity Act, instituting a regulatory agency, and conducting tariff reforms through provision of technical assistance activities. So now, Pacific Renewable Energy Investment Facility, or PRIF. This is our unique facility that caters to a large number of small value projects from 11 smaller Pacific Island countries, or PIC 11. When it comes to how to develop our energy sector project in this sub-region, there are, broadly speaking, two different approaches we are undertaking. For bigger economies like PNG and Fiji, they have a bigger size projects and more funding opportunities. Therefore, we process them as standalone projects, large enough to justify relatively longer lead time. On the other hand, there are smaller economies in terms of population, which has a large number of smaller value projects. For 11 smaller Pacific Island countries, or PIC 11, we are undertaking a programmatic and streamlined approving process of their projects. In another word, that will be their faster approving process, which are related to renewable energy. When this facility was approved back in 2017, the board of directors at ADB has delegated approving authority to the president of a new loan or grant supporting energy efficiency, renewable energy development projects for fast-tracking approving process up to $200 million US as its aggregated ceiling for such fast-track approving process. We have approximately $100 million US till that ceiling and still have time for processing until July 2024. Therefore, there are likely to be many more projects being processed under this facility together with bidding and consultant recruitment notices being posted onto the ADB website. Now, list of projects and technical assistance in pipeline. We have listed here 18 projects and 48 projects to be processed over the next 3 years from 2022 to 2024 for your information. As you can see, you can find the information like estimated timing for procurement, the name of the project, and the estimated amount. Please note that this figure represents the total project cost, not the procurement amount itself. These projects and TAs are expected to select contractors and/or consultants to implement the projects. As you might be familiar already, there is a dedicated business opportunities section at the ADB website where you can find a number of bidding and consultant selection notices by country and then by sector. From our Pacific energy sector operations too, we make it a practice to upload such information as soon as it becomes available. So please regularly visit there so that you can be updated on what kind of business opportunities are available that might meet your expectations and interest. So looking back to the list of projects, for 2022, there are 3 solar PV and battery energy storage system or BESS projects, namely Kiribati South Tarawa Renewable Energy Project, Cook Islands Renewable Energy Sector Project, Solomon Islands Sustainable Solar Development Project. Once again, these projects are scheduled to select contractors to implement the project for installation of such solar PV facilities on these cases. I have put here in brackets the types of procurement of each project has been concerned with. There are also 2 transmission and/or distribution upgrade projects. RMI, Marshall Islands Electrification Project, and PNG, Power Sector Development Project. Those projects are concerned with upgrades to distribution and then the transmission networks. Further, there are 2 hydropower projects listed here. They are FSM, Clean Energy Project, and Samoa Araoa Multi-Purpose Dam Project. For 2023 and 2024, there are 7 floating PV and then BESS projects. They are namely Kiribati Climate Adapted Renewable Energy Project, Tuvalu Increasing Access to Renewable Energy Project Phase 2, Floating Solar Plus Project for Tonga, Nauru, Vanuatu, FSM, and RMI. There is also 1 transmission and then distribution upgrade project, that is Palau, Power Network Upgrade Project. Now here's the other list of TAs. For TA projects, we have listed here 4 that are scheduled to recruit consultants during the period between 2022 and then 2023. Similarly, I have put here in brackets the types of the consultancy assignments requirements each project has gotten. The first three TAs, TA projects, Regional Preparing Sustainable Renewable Energy Projects, Palau Preparing Disaster Resilient Clean Energy Financing Facility, additional financing. Another regional, Pacific Renewable Energy Investment Facility Phase 2, additional financing. They are concerned with processing of ensuing projects under each TA and hence required to recruit consultants who can conduct due diligence of such project. There is another TA which is looking for consultants that can support implementation of ongoing projects. That is Climate Adapted Renewable Energy Project for Kiribati. This project has gotten its requirement of the project management and then construction supervision consultants. So as I have mentioned at the beginning, for the projects and TAs listed here, the information is still indicative. So please take it as the preliminary one, as it will be subject to change. Should you be interested in more details of each project, please do let me know, and I will try my best to answer some of your questions. And if I can't answer it immediately, I will gather further information from each team leader concerned and come back to you. This is the end of my presentation. We look forward to further collaboration and business opportunities with your companies and organizations. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Takeshi. So that wraps up our series of ADB presentations. I think, hello again, can everybody hear me? Yes, okay. That wraps up our series of ADB presentations. Let us now call on to wrap up our series of ADB presentations, rather. Let me please call on Mr. Stéphane Bessadi, whose exceptional team at ADB collaborated with us in organizing today's Business Opportunities Seminar. As part of ADB's Procurement, Portfolio, and Financial Management Department, Stéphane strategically supports infrastructure project designs and procurement in East Asia, Southeast Asia, and the Pacific, focusing on resilience, operations, and maintenance, and low carbon technology. So Stéphane today will present for us ADB's procurement network, standard guidelines for consultants, relevant business opportunities, and recent updates on guidance notes published on sustainable procurement. Over to you, Stéphane.
Thank you, Anna. Good morning and good afternoon to everyone. Thanks to my colleagues for this very insightful presentation. So as you may have seen, we are trying more and more, and especially in this virtual context, to make business opportunity seminar as practical as possible. So we really try to walk the talk and show you that a lot of projects are ongoing and that there are a lot of opportunities and that you can be part of it. So I will try to continue with this pragmatic approach and focusing more on how to access to these opportunities. So next slide, please. Next one. Yeah, next one, please. So thank you. To give you an idea of the geographical coverage of ADB, you can see here the different countries in which we are working. So we have different offices representation. You can see this is a small star on the map. Of course, the headquarters is in the Philippines, but we have also many regional division and regional offices. So we have 68 members, 49 regional and 19 non-regional, and ADB is developing a wide range of financial instruments. But as you know, not only, we are also a knowledge provider more and more, as you could see today with the energy focus and energy presentation. We are really assisting also our partners and our clients to develop the project. Next slide, please. So you can see here some numbers. It was explained by Rustam, so I will not too much detail on this, but you can see that South Asia is the largest client, and Central and Southeast are have about the same size, and we are also present in East Asia and the Pacific. Next slide, please. So to give you an idea of the portfolio, so we have net change every year of about 15 billion regarding sovereigns projects. And we are also active in non-sovereign projects, and you can see that also it's about 14 billion. So we are more and more active in the private sector, and as it was shared today by Prianta, but it's the same for most of the sectors. Countries and government cannot handle everything by themselves, and more we are trying also to support the private sector to develop projects to contribute to the country strategic targets. So our strategy is developed in what we call Strategy 2030 that you can find on the website. I will not detail it today, but you can really find insightful information in it. Next slide, please. So, in line with this COVID-19 context that is, we hope all are about to end soon, we just to show you that we have really adapted quickly, about 2 years ago, to provide more stronger financial support to our country's partners. So by really providing additional finances is about 20 billion. So from we really mobilized existing and additional finance to better support countries to buy vaccines. And we are also part of the AdVax, and we were able also to provide many vaccines through these tools, in which we are contributed with other development partners as World Health Organization and other international partners. So we have really, and we are still very active on these fronts to really continue to mobilize and to develop vaccination in all the countries we are supporting. Next slide, please. So now I will move to the procurement framework, and next slide, please. To remind you that, of course, when you go with ADB, it's a way to access to secured financing. So especially the sovereign loans, they are secured by the government. And you have also access to internationally accepted, fair and transparent procedure. So that is important when you engage in countries that you don't know, for example, or when you plan to develop your activity. Next slide, please. So we have two main type of documents. Since now few years, we have developed what we call our policy and the procurement regulation. So the policy is defining what are the key principles of our procurement, and in the regulation you will find more what are the different procurement tools and modalities that are accessible. And we have also tried to give much more flexibility and focus on new type of principles, as we will see after. Next slide, please. So you can see that in addition of the usual principle, we have introduced quality and value for money. So it's really a new focus, a strong, very strong focus of ADB to acknowledge that also to achieve the climate targets, to achieve the energy targets, the water targets, it's very important to develop the quality of the infrastructure, the quality of the project, and also to develop approaches that are not necessarily the lower cost approach, but a new type of evaluation of where introduce a quality aspect and quality merit point criteria, for example, in order to select not only the lower cost bidders, but the best bidder providing the best value for money. Next slide, please. Yeah, you can go ahead on this one. It's the same spirit of flexibility and fit for purpose approach. And you can see here, so the expected impact that we can see already this impact since we are now developing this policy since few years. Next slide, please. So here, as I mentioned, you have the anti-corruption policy and guidelines that you can also access online and that we are referring to in all our bidding and selection documents. Next slide, please. So I will move now to the ADB business opportunity more practically. Next slide, please. Thank you. So you can see here the scope of the contract. So as I was mentioning, there are really many contracts that we are developing each year. You can see here the different types. So goods, works, or consulting services contract. So I will today focus more on the consulting services, but you can see that the largest part of our engagements in terms of value are related to works and goods. Next slide, please. So you can see, to give you an idea of the ranking of the in amount of the key countries which are providing consultants, which are providing goods, and which are providing works. You can see here the different rating. Next slide, please. Okay, I will show you focusing more on the consultant work. You can see here the five key consultants which have the higher amount with ADB in the last years. So you can see, for example, Aegis, Sofreco, Safej, SCE, Conseil Santé, and few individual consultants. And you can see also on the left, so depending the modality, Vinci, GE Hydro, Grid Solution, and Aqua Energy. I will move more directly to the consultant selection part now. Next slide, please. Yeah, voilà. Just I will go a little bit more quickly on the following slide, and just to give you an overview again. So here you can see you can access this on our website. How to access the different type of opportunities that we are now developing, as it was explained today. So you can access that on our website. Next slide, please. Here also you can see the different steps in which you can enter in the project, that you can really access opportunities at a lot of different stages. Next slide. Thank you. Next slide. Voilà, yeah, you can go ahead also. Okay, just a quick reminder that when you apply to ADB opportunity, you are developing a contractual relation with the executing agency, not with ADB, except in some specific situation for loans and grants. Next slide, please. Thank you. So again, quickly to give you an overview, we are hiring different type of consultants. So it can be consulting firm, it can be individual consultant, it can be also staff consultant, depending on the opportunity and the context. Next slide, please. Voilà, just to show you here again the different step in the process. And here, the different type of selection that you can find more detail again in our guidelines. Depending on the context, again, we apply different type of selection modality, depending on the specific need of the country. Next slide. So you can see here that all the opportunities are advertised on CMS. So I will show you quickly after how to use CMS. But again, you can see here that there is, of course, a TOR, detailed TORs that are published for all the selection, and you can access it on our CMS system that I will show you right after. Next slide, please. yeah, you can go ahead also on this one, and just to show you the process of selection of the consultants. And here, few advice are really to try to understand very well the context and the specific need of the clients when you develop a contract, understanding well also the tax specific context to make sure you understand which tax have to be paid, and really to find partners, local partners is very important, find the relevant partner for your project. Next slide, please. Ask questions, yeah, don't hesitate to contact us for questions. And just to finish and to keep the time, few points. You can see here our CMS system, so please register. You can find all the opportunities as it was explained today by my energy colleagues. Next slide. Voilà, you can register to alerts, so it's very important that you register to alerts. And you can see here on the left of the screen, you can also click COVID-19 selection. So for all the opportunities that are specially linked to the COVID-19 recovery. Next slide. Voilà, and you can see here that we have developed a specific page for COVID-19 where you can understand better what we are doing and also how we can support the projects that are developed in this aspect. Next slide. Voilà, quick update. We have published recently a sustainable public procurement in ADB operation. So focusing on climate aspect and sustainability aspect. And we are also developing a specific guidance note, as I explained, to introduce better the use of merit point criteria in project and to introduce quality aspect in selection criteria. Next one. Voilà, thank you. This is the last slide. So voilà, just to give you an overview of the procurement system that is very wide, as you see, without submerging you with too much information. Please contact us, and also you can see we are very active on the social media, and we have a very good website. So don't hesitate to consult for more details. Thank you very much, and I give back the floor to Anna.
Thank you very much, Stéphane, and appreciate the adjustment in your presentation so that we don't go too much overboard. I'd like to just give a reminder to all our participants that go ahead and keep posting your questions in the chat box. Whatever we do not have time to address for verbally today, we'll try to get the answers and send them to you when we email you post-webinar with copies of the presentation for today and the link for today's replay. So with that, again, thank you very much, Stéphane. We now move on to the French private sector knowledge sharing portion of our webinar. We are delighted to have with us today Mr. Christophe Napez, Business Development Manager for EDF, Électricité de France, CIST, to talk about innovations in international interconnections. So just a brief introduction, Mr. Christophe Napez obtained a Bachelor's of Science degree in Physics at the University College London, and then an MBA from the ESSEC Business School in Paris. He started his career in the photovoltaics industry in Tokyo, Japan, before joining EDF in Paris as project manager for rural electrification in developing countries. So as mentioned, Christophe is with us today to talk about innovations in international connections, focusing on the future of energy as a worldwide web of electricity, allowing green energy to flow when and where it is needed. Thank you again for joining us today, Christophe.
Yes, thank you very much, Anna, for that introduction. So, yes, I would like to say a few words presenting myself and my company's vision of this subject and international interconnections. As you read this nice slogan, the future of energy is a worldwide web of electricity, allowing green energy to flow where and when it is needed. Sounds a little bit utopian, but in fact, I think all of you will agree that the more different countries are interconnected electrically, the more possibilities there are of exchange of energy. And in particular, with regards to green energy and intermittent energy, there are a lot of challenges around that. So interconnection is a good way of, let's say, meeting some of those challenges. So Anna, the next slide, please. Could you, yeah, thank you. Just a few words about Électricité de France, EDF. So EDF is an integrated company in the sense that we cover, let's say, the whole value chain, more or less, of energy. There are about 160,000 people working for EDF worldwide, and we have an annual turnover of about 80 billion euros. The department I work for is called the Power Systems and Transmission Engineering Center, based in Paris. So as the name indicates, we're specialized in transmission networks. We work, of course, for EDF, for the EDF group, but also for a lot of utilities around the world. And we provide services as project managers, consultants, experts, owners, engineers, technical assistants, and contract managers, including in the context of ADB projects. This little map shows some small selection of some of our recent projects that have been going on. I'm going to focus on one or two of those in particular. So if we can go to the next slide, please. Just a bit of a mention about interconnection. So interconnection seems to be progressing on regional levels around the world. You have on this map some examples of local initiatives or regional initiatives, I should say. In the ADB area, as you know, the ASEAN zone is looking at different possibilities for interconnection. We're going to talk about that a bit more. The Greater Mekong subregion as well. Also the North Asia power system integration, which I'm going to mention more. But in other parts of the world, such as Africa, where the West African Power Pool or East African Power Pool, South African Power Pool, they're all attempting to bring those countries together, to work together to increase the interconnectivity of their systems. And probably the area which is the most advanced for the moment in this subject is Europe, where most of the European electric systems are interconnected. In fact, all of them, I believe, including the UK. So although this has sometimes some problems, on the whole, it has allowed a greater stability in the European-wide electric system. Next slide, please. Just to zoom in on a project which EDF carried out for ADB and which was finished quite recently, about a year ago. The NAPSI study. So the idea and the concept behind this initiative is to focus on Mongolia as a regional potential power station in renewable energies, with a country that has a very low density and demand, but a very high potential in terms of renewable energies, in particular solar and wind. In fact, more than 100 gigawatts, according to our estimation, and surrounded by countries that have a high demand, high density of demand, such as China, Korea, Japan, Russia. So our study was a roadmap for the development of renewable energy generation in Mongolia, but with the idea that if we don't interconnect the different regions in Mongolia, and if we don't interconnect Mongolia with its neighbors, then there will be no off-takers, there'll be no demand. So this initiative has been creating models of the Mongolian system and its neighboring countries with different projections of the different horizons, and this initiative has now been taken on by the United Nations, who are attempting to develop and to promote this initiative in Mongolia and its neighboring countries. Next slide, please. Another example of this similar initiative, this one is called OZOWOG, which means One World, One Sun, One Grid. And it's financed by the World Bank this time, but under the patronage of the International Solar Alliance, which is based in India. The roadmap, which is currently being developed by ourselves and other partners, with the slogan, which is "the sun never sets." So the idea is that by interconnecting India and to the east, the ASEAN countries, and to the west, the Middle East and potentially Africa, is to provide an interconnected system where there is always energy or green energy being produced in different parts, and the energy can flow there where the demand is and where the electricity is needed. So we're working on building models to develop the interconnections, to simulate the interconnections, and to see what would happen, how much they would cost, and which are the best opportunities for interconnecting India and these different countries with each other, so as to ensure that the electricity, which is difficult to store, of course, very expensive to store, can always flow within between borders and across this region. This initiative was presented at the COP26 in November of last year by the President of India. Next slide, please. So I'll just end on this this initiative, which is being led by EDF, which I think illustrates the principle that I've been putting forward here. So this initiative is to interconnect Indonesia and Singapore. As you know, Singapore has a very high density of population and of energy demand. The islands just south of Singapore, which you can see on this map, are in Indonesia, but they have a very low density of demand, very low density of population, and yet have a potential to produce photovoltaic solar energy. So the concept of this project, which is currently underway, is to build a subsea cable between Indonesia and Singapore. It's about 40 kilometers distance, and to generate renewables or photovoltaic electricity in Indonesia and export it into Singapore, which has a need for this energy because currently the energy generation in Singapore has a very high carbon content. So the consortium of several companies you can see here, local and international companies, we are currently requesting a license from the Singaporean authorities to import energy, and also an export license from the Indonesian authorities. Our current system sizing aims for about 1 gigawatt of photovoltaics in Indonesia, a battery system to flatten the generation curve slightly, and the subsea cable, which, as I mentioned, is about 40 kilometers, would be a 230 kV HVAC link with a new substation to be built in Indonesia, but using existing infrastructure in Singapore. And the expected timeline is for construction to start in 2023, so next year, with start of operations about 3 or 4 years later, or even sooner if we can manage that. So this project, I think, illustrates in a nice way the concept that it's very difficult to store energy, very expensive. Interconnecting countries can allow us to use the resources in one country that are needed in another. And also, as this project illustrates, these interconnections can be part of a wider web of electricity systems, because Singapore is very close to Malaysia, Indonesia is very close to Timor and to Australia. So we can imagine all sorts of exchanges in the future as this interconnection develops. That's all. I think that was my last slide, so I'm open to any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Christophe, for sharing that with us today. We might have questions after, but we'll just wrap up 2 more speakers and then we'll address the Q&A. Thank you very much. So as our second representative of the French private sector, we're pleased to introduce to you Mr. Jérôme Lemoigne of the French firm Sabella. So Jérôme has a master's degree in electrical engineering, started working in Italy for 5 years for a subsidiary of the group BNP Paribas as quality manager and international project manager, after which he joined the group General Electric, where he spent 17 years in various management positions. So he joined Sabella as its sales director in October of 2021. We have the pleasure of having him here with us today to introduce Sabella and its pioneering innovations in tidal stream energy. Over to you, Jérôme.
Thank you, Anna, and thanks to Business France and ADB for giving me the opportunity to present Sabella and what we are doing currently in the Southeast Asia as projects. Can we go on the next slide, please? So Sabella is a company. We are manufacturing tidal turbines. So our mission is to design and implement systems to power coastal areas and produce green hydrogen using tidal energy. So what is tidal energy? It's a way to, let's say, harness the potential of the ocean, extracting from the tidal currents all the energy. And those turbines that are manufactured are seabed mounted. So those turbines are completely invisible, renewable energy, of course, and we have access to an unlimited energy that is based on the ocean power. The last but not least, it's an energy that is completely predictable, as we are based on the position of the moon and the sun. So it's perfectly predictable renewable energy, which is a good complementary energy to I would say the standard ones, more on wind and solar. Sabella is a company that was created in 2008, and we're based in Brittany, in France. We are 28 employees, and the capital, the shareholding structure is quite balanced between industrials, where we have General Electric, for instance, as shareholder, and 50% from financial companies. The main one being BPI France, which is the investment public bank owned by the French state. The strategy, so the mission is there. The strategy is based on 3 pillars. The first one is developing the non-interconnecting zones, meaning the remote islands and remote grids which are not interconnected. The second pillar is developing commercial forms to, I would say, decrease and improve, optimize the LCOE of the turbines. And the last one, where we have a huge capacity of production with a huge energy ocean resource, but we don't have the consumption, is also to develop a way to transform the electrical energy to hydrogen, to transport it on longer distances, and to improve the overall cost efficiency of the system. If you go on to the next slide, please. So a little focus on the remote islands. So this kind of energy is very well suitable for remote grids and islands, where we have, of course, tidal energy to be harnessed. In this configuration, we are developing projects where we are combining and mixing different sources of energy, for instance, solar, tidal energy, and storage energy. And a recent study showed that tidal energy is very well suitable for these remote islands, as it's highly predictable. So, respect to wind, for instance, when you put together wind energy and energy storage, the benefit of tidal is that you are maximizing the usage of the storage and you are able to provide a more constant energy respect to wind, which is unpredictable. And as you know, when we are using renewable energy and you don't have the wind or the solar, you need to put in place backup solutions with, for instance, fuel generators. With the tidal, the benefit is that you are minimizing the fuel generators consumptions, so you are highly reducing CO2 emissions, and you are providing a lower cost of electricity to those not connected zones. If you go on the next slide, please. So we are present worldwide with different projects that are currently under development. Some of them are in Europe, I would say mainly France and UK, where you have most of the resource in Europe, but we have also a huge resource in Canada, and as in Asia Pacific as well. China, Philippines, Indonesia are places where we have a lot of islands. And as long as you have islands and you have straits, you accelerate the current and you can benefit from this huge energy that is produced to transform this energy into electricity. So we are developing projects worldwide, and altogether those projects are, let's say, giving more autonomy to islands and giving more autonomy also to shore communities. If you go to the next slide, please. This is just a quick case study on a project that we are developing in the Philippines. The objective of this project is to develop the first commercial ocean power plant with tidal in-stream turbines. The location is in the San Bernardino Strait, and this will be a phased project toward a commercial farm. The first project, for instance, is to feed the Kapul Island with a mix of energy based on one tidal turbine of 250 kilowatt plus solar production with 300 kilowatts, all together mixed with energy storage systems. And this is something that can lead to autonomy of these islands and to decrease the cost of energy that is, as of today, completely relying completely on the fuel generators and the fuel consumption. If you go on the next slide, please. So with this kind of project that we can develop based on tidal energy, you can, I would say, release the fuel, say, dependency on those islands. And this Kapul Island, for instance, is, as of today, depending on 4 diesel generators. But with the energy mix and the projects we can develop with mixing solar, storage, and tidal, you can get up to 90% of green electricity production, and you can save up to 850 tons of CO2 per year. The other benefit is that on those islands, you don't have electricity all the time, and you can build, let's say, an autonomy and independency on this electricity, bringing electricity 24 hours a day, respect to 16 hours as of today, at a competitive cost of electricity, which is very important for this community. Last but not least, you can also, let's say, help and expand the economic development of those islands. As of today, only 60% of the population is connected to the grid. The electricity is available 16 hours a day, giving them 100% of electrification rate and 24/7 the electricity access. You can develop other economic activities such as tourism, of course, refrigeration, fishing, I would say, activity and economy, as well as developing all the domestic uses of those islands. So it was an example of a project that we are handling in the Philippines, but there are many others. And tidal is something that can become a base load for renewable energy as we are predictable respect to other renewable energy sources. That's all for me. Thank you very much, and I give you back the floor, Anna.
Merci beaucoup, Jérôme. Thank you very much. I'd like to thank all our participants today and ask for your indulgence in keeping your attention just a few minutes longer before we get to your questions. Allow me just a few brief minutes to present to you Business France's business support for the French private sector at ADB. So as I mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, my name is Anna Austria-Lemay. I work as Business France's commercial liaison to the Asian Development Bank. I'm based in the offices of the French Embassy in Manila, where ADB's headquarters are also located. Next slide, please. So the creation of a liaison officer to provide you with business support at the service of the French private sector at ADB was created in 2017 with the main aim of maximizing opportunities for collaboration with the bank by increasing visibility and identifying business opportunities. So together, our goal is to make you a credible development partner of ADB, provide you with assistance in project intelligence, offer procurement support, and of course, help you build your ADB network. Next slide, please. So we are very conscious of the fact that different firm profiles correspond to very different requirements in terms of support. What we offer is a business program that we can specifically design for you and with you. So in the beginning, we will take into account your international experience, financial capacity, available manpower, and presence in ADB DMC's local markets to collaborate on a specific set of targeted actions to implement, the timeline of which is entirely at your disposal. Next slide, please. Next slide, please, Geraldine. Merci. So these types of actions and services that we can provide can either be accessed through a long-term membership type of setup, wherein I can be at your disposal spontaneously for really anything ADB related, examples of which are enumerated in this slide: project intelligence, due diligence work, organizing missions, strategic partnerships, ADB image building, obviously not limited to these examples, or especially for firms that are still getting to know ADB and its operations, we can organize as well one-time missions or conduct one-time studies in order to provide you with initial concrete information and experience, which will hopefully guide you in better evaluating your long-term business strategy. Next slide, please. So I will not take up any more airtime, so we still have a few minutes left to address the questions that you posted on our chat box. Do reach out to us if you would like to know more. With my colleague Nathalie Issa, based in our headquarters in Paris, we are at your disposal to provide more details. So that wraps up all the presentations. We have a couple of questions that came through the chat. Let me go right ahead and jump in and read out the questions for everybody. So the first one was received during Mr. Boui's presentation. But I think either Mr. Boui or Priyanta can take this. Does ADB have projects under implementation or scheduled in the next few years that are cross-sectoral, for example, combining urban development and energy efficiency, or is it still on the strategic agenda? I believe, Priyanta, you mentioned the one ADB approach in your presentation. I don't know if you'd like to take the lead on this or...
Yeah, since I have to leave quickly, I may come in.
Thank you, Priyanta. We're sorry we're going a little bit over time, but do know that the rest of the questions we'll address to you through email if we don't have time to address them all.
Sure. Sorry for that. And I apologize. And yeah, we have a few cross-sectoral projects still under preparation. For instance, in India, we have a project where we try to introduce solar water pumping in the agriculture sector. And so it's energy and water. And energy efficiency also, along with it, we bring in energy efficient high voltage distribution systems and smart metering along with it. So it's kind of a cross-sectoral in that sense. In addition to that, of course, not in terms of infrastructure sectors, but also from private and public partnerships, we do a combined lending to distribution system in Bangalore, where both private sector and public sector put in money. This includes not only the electricity sector, but also communication sector. We are laying some fiber optics along with the distribution cables. So these are just two examples, and we'll have many more in the future. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Priyanta. Mr. Bui, did you want to add anything to that?
Yes.
Go ahead.
I would like to inform that we are now preparing the policy-based loan in the Philippines, which we call the climate change program for the Philippines that cover urban agriculture and energy. Energy takes leads, so it's a sectoral program. The difference between the program loan and the project loan is the policy-based loan will be approved sub-program by sub-program, and we prepare for the future sub-program. So the first one is for the consideration by management, and we are working on the second one. So we may have consulting services requests to be posted on the ADB website in the next few months or quarter.
Thank you very much. For our participants who do not have the question visible, but thank you that you addressed it already. The question there was, what is if you could explain the difference between RBLs, result-based loans, and PLBs, policy-based loan projects. So you've touched on that a little bit. If any of our other speakers would like to add to that, go ahead and jump in. Otherwise, I'll go into the last published question, which is also from Mr. Bui. May we know
Anna,
go ahead, Stefan.
Yeah, sorry, no, regarding PBL and RBL, I think the explanation can be a little bit tedious now in respect of time, but what I suggest is we will provide details to you, and you can send it to the participants, but it's definitely new type of modalities to focus more on policy and governance aspect, and regarding RBL to link more the disbursement on the project outcomes. But we will give you more detail on this later. Thank you.
Okay, for the benefit of our participants online today, rest assured that we'll be compiling all the questions, even those that were addressed verbally today, as we are aware that in terms of time we're a little short. So what we'll do is we'll compile them with the answers, and we'll send them out with our post-webinar emails. If we have just a quick enough time to address one last question for Sir Bui, may we know the capacity and location you are foreseeing for the phase 2 of the geothermal power generation project? Let us know if there's time to address that in 2 minutes. Otherwise, we'll forward the question through email to give you ample time to give all the necessary details.
Yes, no, we don't know yet the exact location, but kindly forward the question. I asked the team leader to.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, will do. Thank you. I think that's unfortunately all the time that we have for today. Like I said, we are very happy to receive other questions post-webinar. We'll take the time to compile them all together so that we can send out a post-webinar email to all our registered participants with links to the slides for all of today's presentations, as well as links to the replay of the webinar and answers to questions in written form. Again, a reminder for those of you who have indicated your desire to continue discussions post-webinar with our ADB experts present today, or even those that were not able to present today but would be of relevance with regards to whatever your priorities are related to ADB, please do not hesitate to get in touch with us, and we will be happy to facilitate further discussions. So in behalf of this webinar's team, both at the ADB side and at Business France side, we are very, very grateful for your time and joining us today. Special thank you again for our speakers for your time and expertise. Ms. Ad Marshall, Mr. Sylvain Billard, Mr. Rustam Abdukayumov, Dr. Priyanta Wijayatunga, Mr. Bui Dritan, Mr. Takeshi Shihara, Stéphane Bessadi, and of course from our French private sector, thank you for sharing with us today, Mr. Christophe Napez and Jérôme Lemoigne. We regret we don't have enough time for organic discussions, but hopefully this is something we can do again later on. Who knows, perhaps in person. In the meantime, again, many thanks to all of you, and please do stay in touch. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Goodbye.
Thank you very much.